Greetings and salutations, and we're back with Terraria. Now, the Master Mode Terraria. I've been thinking, I've been doing a lot of that recently, and my first thought was maybe I should just go kill the Wall of Flesh, push the whole thing into Master Mode, right? Or not Master Mode, Hard Mode. Then I thought, is it possible to even kill the Wall of Flesh and push it to Master Mode or Hard Mode? Listen to me, I'm failing on every step. But that's the joys of unedited content. So if I was to do that and succeed, what would be my next step? Probably building the flamethrower. Maybe. But how would I go about doing it? And I thought a lot about it. And I'm thinking the sticky grenades is probably the best bet for doing it. But I'm going to have to build an entire platform all the way to the end of the world and then do it. So I'm going to try to work on that. And while I'm trying to work on that, I'm going to talk about... Normally, like I said, I try to avoid political things. Right? Well, there's one big glaring one in the room. And I don't mean me. The big glaring one in the room is the whole Venezuela deal. Now, there are people out there saying they're taking every single possible standpoint on Venezuela. And my personal standpoint on it is this. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 on just a laundry list of charges. And I know people would say, well, just because you're indicted on a laundry list of charges doesn't necessarily mean that you could face extradition, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's not worry too much about that. It took him 6 years to go from indictment to actually acting on the indictment. But that's not the part I want to talk about. We all know that Nicolas Maduro, was handed the power from Hugo Chavez. Both of them were self-avowed communists. Whatever. Here's where I have a bit of a thing with it, right? Recently, and this is very recently, there have been a laundry list, and I am going to use that term multiple times, of government officials coming out and saying, you shouldn't have done that. Because something Congress needs to sign off, etc. Which, in most cases, yes, Congress does have to sign off on any form of action that is to be taken. However, it has come to the attention of multiple people that Congress may have been leaking information. Which raises an interesting question now. Nobody really knows who the leaker was, or is. So this raises the interesting question, of course, of who is it? What are they leaking? If they're leaking all of this intel, and they wanted to leak it before anything happened, that's kind of right in the same ballpark as... I don't want to go so far as to say treason, but it is, because they're aiding and abetting a foreign power. Well, okay. This now falls under a new issue here. You now have people possibly aiding and abetting a foreign power, which is bad. Falls under treason. But it also means that Congress, as a whole, is as watertight as a sieve. Anybody who's paid attention the past 3 decades would know this. Which is true. I mean, everybody knows that Congress is not exactly secure. Never has been. It's like that meme, wait, we're the bad guys? Always have been? That kind of thing. Similar thing, just kind of like the meme, only... It's Congress saying, what, we leak information? Always have. Now that obviously that obviously poses serious risks in terms of the intel communities and so on and so forth. Now, I don't trust the intel communities as much as the next guy. But for somebody to be like, ah, yes, well, you know, we had to, per se, leak that intel. Mind you, the mainstream media did their actual due diligence and didn't report the leak. Because it got leaked to the media. Well, they didn't say who did it. There was a whistleblower at the DNI that said, hey, wait, somebody was trying to leak sensitive operative info. While this was going on. Which seems a little problematic, realistically speaking. It's actually quite heavily problematic. The reason why it's so problematic is because that means that there's an enemy within. And once they find out who it is, they should obviously prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Which probably won't mean much considering how corrupt government can be. But it begs so many questions right now. Which is, why is everybody so worried about this? Why is everybody so worried about him? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, he wasn't given due process, etc. Well, okay. But if he's listed as a individual that has many I can't even say like felonies, but they are technically felonies against him, well then shouldn't that just be dealt with as is? Of course there's going to be pushback on that too. People say, well, you know, he possessed machine guns, it's his own country. Okay, sure. Let's go with that. There is substantial evidence to prove that some tampering was done in the 2020 election of not just Venezuela, but in the States as well. And in other countries. And it was done from the Smartmatic machines, the Dominion Smartmatic machines that exist in Venezuela at the time. Now, obviously people aren't going to care too awful much about the whole, you know, oh, they're stealing the elections. Not a lot of people are going to care about that. I hate to be that guy, but that's the sad fact of the truth. Where my big thing comes in is, why the pushback from all the congressmen? And I mean that. You have congressmen pushing back against this, literally having absolute, almost epileptic fits over this whole operation. Which makes me wonder, what do they gain by Nicolas Maduro being free? It's a valid question. If you think about it, right? You're talking about a communist ruler. And of course, you're going to have people say, oh, you know, what do you mean communist ruler, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to have people trying to almost white knight him. But it, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, whether or not you believe the socioeconomic issues with it, right? And they're going to say, oh, well, he was a sovereign person of his own country, so on and so forth. Okay, sure, whatever. I want to know why on earth you have members of Congress, U.S. Congress, basically saying, nope, nope, nope. We have to take him back. What are you people gaining? Seems a little suspicious, doesn't it? It's almost like there's a lot at stake for these congressmen and senators. Almost like they're going to lose everything if they don't get Nicolas Maduro back. And it's very, very suspicious. At least in my head. Because in my head, it's like, okay, I can understand the whole, in order to declare war, etc. Well, technically, it's not really declaring war. It was special operations. It's not really a war, per se. Now, of course, people are going to say, well, that's semantics, blah, blah, blah. But people aren't asking the right questions, I don't think. Why? And this is the question I would have for any of the sitting congressmen. Why are you so invested in Nicolas Maduro? Unless you have something that you are going to lose or gain by his position and his station. And that's the truth. Like, there's got to be something you're gaining by him being out of power. Or not gaining by him being out of power, but something you're gaining by him being in power. Something you don't want to talk about. It's a little suspicious. I mean, it is to me. So it's like, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, you have a group of political figures here in the States that seem like they're making money off of this. Now, these are the same group of people, and it's not just unilateral party line either. There are people on both sides of the aisle that have been saying, you don't need to be attacking narco boats in the Gulf of America. Now, people say, well, why do you call it the Gulf of America? That just makes more sense, doesn't it? It's North America. It should be called the Gulf of the Americas. Realistically speaking, it's the name of the continent. It's like calling the Indian Ocean, because it's located near India. Kind of self-explanatory. But they had a problem with the narco boats getting blown up. Same group of people now just say, we should not have gone in and gotten Nicolas Maduro. That's a bit puzzling to me. Well, how do you know that there's narcotics on the boat? I don't know. Kind of a hunch. It's coming from a place that produces scads of cocaine and fentanyl and has ties to cartels. Maybe, just maybe, it might, possibly, quite possibly, have illegal drugs on a boat. Maybe, perhaps. We don't know. We're going to look further into it. That's kind of a dead giveaway, isn't that? I mean, really? Let's use our brain here. You have boats with ties to a regime or a government or a group of ne'er-do-wells running the country that have been known to be running scads of cocaine into the country. Now, I had this kind of discussion the other day where I said that would cocaine fall under chemical warfare? I mean, it might. It is a chemical, but it is grown. It's natural. So where does that fall? Does that fall under pure chemical warfare? Does it fall under partial chemical warfare? Does it fall under natural chemical warfare? Like fentanyl's purely synthetic. That's chemical warfare. As a whole, that's a war crime. But then it brings up the question, who stands to gain? Well, if you have congressmen, now mind you, these same congressmen, these same senators have come out and said things along the lines of, I take no Israeli dollars. They are not part of AIPAC. They do not take any AIPAC money whatsoever. $0 taken from Israel. You could tell we're not bought off. Okay, but now you're the loudest people saying we shouldn't blow up narco-terrorist boats. And what's your net worth again? On $170,000 a year as a salary of a congressman, your net worth is in the millions? It's a little weird. Especially if they haven't been there all that long. It's really supremely weird. And of course, you are going to have the detractors saying, are you trying to say that people in the American government are on the take? Yeah. Wouldn't be the first time. Would not be the first time that personal ventures of the American government have not, have caused a conflict of interests in multitudes of, say, I don't know, policy. Now, for a lot of people, they would say, well, wait. What do you mean? Well, Ted Kennedy, for example, had ties to whiskey, the whiskey production. There was a large portion of his family that was into whiskey production. And so you could almost guarantee that the alcohol lobby was given a pass on a lot of things due to his station. Of course, all unsubstantiated because they never could substantiate it. Right? But now you take a look at it, you have these people being openly vocal against operations to remove harmful material and substances and potentially weapons from coming into the United States. So hundreds of thousands of people perish annually from illicit substances, cocaine, fentanyl, etc., and so on and so forth. As it may not be 100% pure cocaine either, it might be laced with something, thus causing an even bigger issue. Because you start dealing with, people tampering with things and creating a bigger problem along the lines of, these, for lack of a better term, illicit substances being what is effectively laced with potentially lethal other materials. Don't you think that the goal of a senator, congressman, any sort of elected representative would be to try to protect the constituents that they supposedly work for? Kind of a straightforward thing in the job, isn't it? So why did they push back against it? Doesn't make sense. Unless they're making money off of it. And if they're making money off of it, it's a severe conflict of interest, one that lands them in hot water, which now raises a whole bunch of ethics questions. Now, I'm not making any sort of statement saying that they're guaranteed to be dirty. Just seems awfully suspicious. that they'd be pushing back so hard. It's very suspicious to me. And of course, you would, you know, if you're people like me, you'd be told things like, you shouldn't be suspicious of your elected officials, blah, blah, blah. Okay, George Orwell. And that's the thing, is that a lot of people get that way. They'll say things like, oh, you shouldn't be suspicious of it. Why not? Like, yeah. Right, we'll dig through blocks and lay new track of carrying minecart trade. I like that. Whoa. I don't have enough money for it, but I like it. I'll remember that for the future. That's going to be cool. But yes, everybody should be suspicious of what the government's doing. Too many people have gotten to this very lax... I wouldn't even say even lax. It goes beyond lax. They've gotten comfortable with the government just saying, well, we didn't do that. And everybody's like, okay. Kind of like the robots on Mitchell's versus the Machines, right? People just kind of shrug their shoulders. Okay. No, it's not okay. Then, of course, you get those people that say, so what do you suggest? I suggest people start looking at, you know, the Founding Fathers' documents. Basically saying, hey, we can hold a constitutional convention and get rid of these people. And make them have term limits by amending the Constitution. Doing it through the legal processes that have been bestowed upon us in our founding documents. People won't. But I'm hoping that they would come to their senses and actually do it. And of course you have the whole group of people saying, oh, well, they're doing that to take away the oil from Venezuela. Okay, let's say that's the case. Let's say that we're taking away the oil from Venezuela. Who's Venezuela been selling the oil to for a while? Well, they've been selling it to Iran, Russia, and China. Now, there's a debate to be had with, are they inherently evil? No. Not necessarily. I think that there's a lot lost in context of where things are and where things are globally. And I think that if people started to understand more things in a global perspective, they might actually see that perhaps not everything is as it seems. And I'll leave it at that. Now, of course, I'm gonna have, you know, a whole bunch of people saying, "Are you advocating for Russia?" No, I'm not. What I am saying is, you have a group of people that were told by NATO that there would be no expansionism eastward. And this was Russia that was told that there would be no NATO expansionism. And effectively, the Russians were lied to by NATO. Now, of course, People would say, well, of course they were. Because they were a threat. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know about anybody else, but wouldn't you be justified in being ever so slightly miffed if, say, a group of nations got together and said, no, we're not going to build anything eastward. We're not going to be kind of aggressively posturing all of our military bases within striking distance of your capital. Why on earth would we do that? Only to do exactly the thing you just said we wouldn't do. I don't know about you, but if I was the leader of a sovereign nation, I'd be like, so that's how it's going to be, huh? I'd be just a couple of shades over miffed. Just a few. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, should it have gotten to that point? No, it should not have. It definitely should not have. Like, there's no world in which we should have said, ah, yes, we will not build eastward, and then all of a sudden basically lie to people and then build eastward. That's not right. I'm sorry. I gotta side with the Ruskies on that one. And I'm not one of those people that would say that America is imperialist or that it has imperialist ideals. Not even remotely close. But securing Venezuelan oil so that it's not sold to potential adversarial maneuvers and ruining the petrodollar, considering with the silver squeeze that's currently going on, having the petrodollar kind of take a ding kind of puts people in a tenuous position, doesn't it? I mean, realistically, look at it. If the silver squeeze happens and silver starts trading well below, or well above, I should say, not well below, if silver starts trading well above the spot price, which currently the spot price is being artificially suppressed, I'm not a financial advisor, but it is being artificially suppressed, then there's a case to be made that securing oil for the Venezuelan people to then sell to the United States at a cut rate cost similar to what Kuwait did way back in the day with OPEC. Would be strategic advantage, especially if things go south. Now, how do you know that silver is doing what it's doing, or doing what all these pundits claim? Well, let's take a look at it. The Nintendo 3DS. People probably own one, maybe. I know I do. I own a couple. And by a couple, I mean, you know, I own, I think, my brother's old 3DS, maybe? And I own my old 3DS. What if I told you that right now they're selling aftermarket for about $300? Doesn't that raise alarm bells? Doesn't me. I mean, I get some serious alarm bells. And the reason I get serious alarm bells from that, the DS probably has silver in it. So why would they buy it? Why are they buying them up for a massive influx? All right? It would make sense. One second. It would make sense if they didn't have to balance their silver sheets. But, lo and behold, stuff was promised. Physical silver was promised to certain people. And when certain other people failed to deliver on the silver, now you've hit a snag. Because now you have people that are trying to buy up the physical silver. Check the silver price in China. Check the silver price in Saudi Arabia. Check the silver price in Japan. Check the silver price trading for the British pound sterling right now. Venezuela also has stores of silver and gold, natural minerals. Maybe the play wasn't about the oil. Maybe it was about securing critical resources that are going to be needed in the near future. But you can't get your hands on silver. You just can't. Pretty much right now, if you're holding it, you're one of the lucky ones. Because it is going to go up. Now, again, not a financial advisor. I'm just observing. And what I've observed is there's not many silver dips lately. You don't see silver dipping and then coming back and then dipping and coming back and then... No. There's... like... very few, if any, dips in silver right now. And they're trying their level best to keep it from hyperinflating. Because if silver hyperinflates, then the market as you know it is pretty much done and dusted. And that's all because silver has been the stabilizer for years. There's many people you could go out there and listen to that would tell you about what silver is and what it does. Plenty of people. And I am not one of those people. All I can tell you is that there's a squeeze. There's a silver squeeze. And I think that what's going on in Venezuela has to partially do with a silver squeeze coming. Another one. Truthfully. And I think you have forces, extramediary forces, trying to prevent their, for lack of a better term, stranglehold from falling apart. These are people that own a lot of physical assets. And when they own these physical assets, what happens? Well, they know what they're holding. Then you also have people that they don't hold physical assets, but they're not happy with the way things are going in the market when it comes to physical assets. There's a massive power structure out there. It's a power structure that's been in play for years, decades, really. Ever since Nixon took us off the gold standard in the 70s. These people have been in play. And I think, and people would say, wow, you're just a conspiracy nut. Yeah, I've been called that before. But us conspiracy nuts lately have a really good batting average. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen. That doesn't mean anything's guaranteed to happen. But I think there's more to this Venezuela thing than people are letting on. And it's unfortunate that I have to build this entire pathway out, but it has to be done, unfortunately. You have to build your arena. Will come a time when people will need to realize that the investments they've made are not the ones they needed to make. I'm not saying that it's bad. You know, that if you invested in the wrong thing. Take a look at RAM, too. RAM, GPUs. Why is the price $1,000? What's it got in it? Doesn't it just raise your eyebrow a little bit? Doesn't it make you wonder? Makes me wonder. I think RAM has silver in it. And people say, well, there is silver coating on some of the contacts in RAM, blah, 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 blah. I think it's more than just a coating. I think there's a fair amount of it in there. I'm not saying it facetiously. I'm not saying it to just try to be that guy. I honestly do believe that there is a relatively large amount of silver, maybe an ounce or two, in GPUs and RAM. And I think that these production items, like RAM, etc., are the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. Know what I mean? They're the ones that are sitting there saying, "Hey, this is what the price is going to be in the future." Now, is it a guarantee? No, it's not a guarantee. There's no guarantees in life. Nothing is guaranteed. I can't say nothing is guaranteed. There is one guarantee. And people say, well, yeah, what's that? Well, death and taxes, right? The old Benjamin Franklin thing. No. Collision is a guarantee. Now, people like to think, well, why is collision a guarantee? Because things will collide. It's only a matter of time. It's a certainty. This arena takes so long to build. Takes twice as long now because of this stupid having to poke holes in it. Otherwise, the lava slimes, the lava would accumulate and I'd burn myself to death. So, aside from that, it takes twice as long now. You gotta make drainage holes, which is kind of sad. Sounds like a medical condition. You gotta make drainage holes. Not good. I see that demon down there. I have an interesting topic for the next video, though. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do Balatro in the next video. Probably. Maybe Diablo 2. Because I'm still trying to do the one talent challenge. No, wait, I did that not too long ago. I don't know. I know I did Balatro. I'll have to figure something out. That'd have been very bad because there's a lava slime down there too. Don't need the voodoo doll Don't need the voodoo doll summoning the wall of flesh just yet. I'd like to think I made enough progress, but I know that I haven't. I knew that was coming. As soon as I saw the demon off to the left-hand side, I was like, I'm gonna get sickled to death. But I'm genuinely curious to wonder what the whole scheme is behind the whole Venezuela deal. I don't think it's as simplistic as, we gotta go get the oil. I don't think it's that simplistic. I think there's something multi-tiered at play. And to a degree, I think that there's been a lot of multi-tiered stuff at play for quite a long time. Now, people would say, well, what do you mean, like the whole, special operations, secret operations stuff? It's like, possibly. I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and say that it's not happening, right? Just people would say, oh, like, the QAnon thing. There was a big flap about that a while ago. They say, well, you talking about that? Well, maybe. Well, how do we know? How do we know it's functional, real? How do we know it's not real? We don't. The only thing we can do is just kind of sit there and wait and see how it all plays out. See what happens. While we wait, though, you could hold the feet to the fire of people in elected office, because technically they're supposed to be working for you. And it's simple enough to do. It's just by being effectively a thorn in the side of elected officials without being overly abrasive. You have to make a salient point and then kind of, be like, hey, why hasn't this happened? Why hasn't this been done? That kind of thing. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that because they're like, oh, the government will come after you. Well, that's possible. But isn't that a risk? Isn't that a risk they used to take back in the day? Realistically speaking. And I mean that in the greatest sense of the word. Like, realistically looking back on it, wasn't that something that the Founding Fathers did, knowing full well that it might not have come out good for them in the end? You have to be able to kind of stand up for your convictions at a certain point and say, we're doing this because we believe it's the right thing to do, even if it costs us something. Being able to make that sacrifice, you know what I mean? I don't know. Sometimes it takes a very special individual to really have a philosophy and a standpoint that they're willing to fight for to a degree. I don't know. Maybe it takes a principled individual. Hard telling. I mean, it's not like I was in military service or anything. But to me, there are certain principles that I would say are non-negotiable when you boil it down to it, you know? You get to a certain point, it's like there are some things that when you see a certain type of injustice, it's something you have to sit there and say, you know what? No. And of course, you're going to have people wanting to take a modern interpretation on certain things when it comes to that. And it's like, okay, well, how far does a modern interpretation actively work in this scenario? You know? Because I've had people try to debate me on certain things like gun control, so on and so forth. And of course, you hear all the standpoints of like, nobody needs guns. And it's like, well, according to the Founding Fathers, according to the people that founded the country, the guns are not for the protection of, say, they're not for the protection of the government. They're to protect yourself from the government. If the government should ever become tyrannical. Which, some people would say, well, you know, it's gotten to that point. Well, possibly. There's a high possibility that it has. I don't know. I'm not the one making that judgment call, right? However, I am the one saying that the right should never have been infringed. Despite on people's agreement on it or not. Ronald Reagan went too far with the automatic weapons ban. And people would say, wait, you support people having fully automatic weapons? Yes. Yes, I do. I think people need to be... I think there needs to be more judicious... I can't even say background checks, but... more judicious use of said arms. Meaning that I think if people have that capacity at their disposal, that if they use that capacity at their disposal, that punishments should carry a heavier weight. If that makes sense. Know what I mean? And people would say, well, wait a minute. It's like, there's no really wait a minute on it. It's quite literally the Spider-Man idea, the Spider-Man theory. With great power comes great responsibility. Right? It's like if you're going to use this item that is powerful, and you are going to use it in a way that can be potentially construed as wrongful, you are now responsible for the multitude of people that it may affect. Now, you're going to be... I mean, that's going to be met with a lot of pushback. Right? They're going to say, wow, that's a very bad way of looking at it. Yes and no. Let's take, for example, that same mindset. You are basically telling people that you are going to allow them not so much to become like the arbiters of life and death, but to that degree. Yes, you're telling them that they are now the arbiter of effectively being somebody who can choose what happens. Through means of their actions, they can have a large effect on something. Now, I'm not saying that it's a good and or bad thing. I'm saying that when you put something like that in their hands, the responsibility is also there. And for those that don't see that, need to be kind of educated that, hey, look, you have this level of power. You are responsible to a degree, to a larger degree than those that don't have it. It's no different than being, not that anybody should make this sort of parallel, but it's no different than being a superhero, right? Or being in charge of, say, a percentage or anything of a, say, a business. If you're put in a position of responsibility, then you are also in a position, or if you're put in a position of power, then you are also put in a position of responsibility. Effectively. And if you're in that position of power and you were put in that position of power and you do not act responsibly, then you should suffer more punishment. because you have the power, and then you just decide to wield it all willy-nilly, so the weight should carry more weight. You make a mistake, something happens, people get hurt, then yes, it should come back on you. Heavier than if you were just a normal rank and file. Because you're using a position, or you're using something that increases your power, so to speak. It's a Spider-Man approach. Is it foolproof for law? No, it's not. But I think that should be heavily considered. Because according to any sort of founding document, if you were to actually look into it, they say that the usage and bearing of arms cannot be restricted, which means you technically should be able to roll down the street with a tank or carry a samurai sword wherever. But you can't. Why not? It's being restricted. That's why. It's being slowly eroded. Sorry for my long, kind of drawn-out philosophical, geopolitical discussion, rant, kinda thing. I just think my take on it is, like I said, there's something more in play here, and it's something we're not seeing. But again, the phrase is undefeated. That phrase is undefeated. Ask yourself every single time when you hear somebody doing something, who stands to gain? It's either way. Like, you know, he goes in there and removes Maduro. Who stands to gain? Well, the people of Venezuela do. Oil companies do. Now, the people that are pushing back on it, who stands to gain? What do they gain? Why are you pushing back on it? Oh, because it's against the Constitution to just go in as the president and willy-nilly do something without congressional oversight or congressional approval. Okay, but that's kind of a flimsy argument, isn't it? I mean, especially when you hear that a story was potentially going to be leaked, putting people in harm's way by a congressman or one of the congressman's staff. They haven't exactly said who, but they said it was going to head toward the New York Times and the Washington Post. CBS said that they were going to hear from it too, but they didn't publish it. So, again, this is just in the rumor sphere. But if you're as watertight as a sieve, maybe that's why he didn't say anything. Just saying. Just ask yourself that undefeated phrase, who stands to gain, and then start putting some thought to it. And then draw the line. Well, these people might get money from said cartels. Pretty good reason to defend the guy, isn't it? Especially if he's buttering your bread. A little weird. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I did. I didn't quite get to being able to summon the Wall of Flesh because I'm still having to build the arena, which is probably still another 1,000 or so blocks away. But I'm trying. And I don't even know if I can summon the thing without killing other things like the worm or Skeletron. I have to figure something out, though. I'm going to finish building that arena. I might do that off camera and then finish building the arena, then give it a valid shot to Wall of Flesh using grenades and trying to use grenades to get the game to kick over to hard mode so that I can build the flamethrower or something and then proceed to chase down the worm and Skeletron and go get the shadow keys and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes. But I thank everybody for watching this video. I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good one.